actually a figment of my imagination, a child imagination kind of thing, but I can actually recall even to this day what I was wearing, where I was, what I was doing, and I was one of those kids that like to get up in the middle of the night and like sneak a snack, from the fridge. So I went into the fridge, opened it up, and kind of looked down at my feet, and I saw this bony hand coming out from underneath the fridge, and it just waved at me, and it just went right back in. Tripped me out, didn't even understand what it was. As a kid, you kind of get freaked out about those kinds of things. But as everything progressed, and I got into, my teenage years, I started having these little red flags that I don't know if a lot of people feel that they're empathic or have abilities themselves, but it was kind of one of those things where you have oh, she's too sensitive, or she's getting really worked up about things, or, I would feel fine one minute and all of a sudden I'd be, excuse me, I'm not a hearts and sparkles kind of girl, I got really pissed off. And I don't know why. And so as I started, down my line of, teenagerdom and young adulthood, there was a lot of things that I didn't understand. I couldn't understand why these things were happening to me, why I was feeling the way that I was, why I would go into, a certain area of, a grocery store or a department store, and all of a sudden I'm feeling fine, and then all of a sudden I would just get really ticked off or want to cry or, just go sit in a corner. As everything started, kind of going in and I came into my young adulthood, I met my wonderful husband here, and he was my boyfriend at the time, Miguel. And I started experiencing these really bad luck. Things happening to me. Really weird things going on. I felt like literally there was a battle going inside of me. I didn't understand. I didn't know what was going on. I would have these feelings of depression. I would have, crying fits. And first a lot of people would be like, was it depression? No, not really, because I could get myself out of it, And as I went on down the line, I decided to reach out and try to get some help. And I didn't really understand what I was going to be doing. Like, how do I go about, looking into finding out what's going on with me spiritually? It was one of those things, like, nobody had ever talked to me about it before. Nobody had ever really educated me about it before until later on. So I actually had this one experience where, my hubby will back me up on this. I decided to reach out to some people that were more spiritually well aware of what was going on with me. And that's when I actually had my first experience with my spiritual mother and my mentor, Patricia. And she was what we call a curandera, which was a healer, in our culture. And so I decided to get on the phone, and tried to see if anybody was going to answer. And she actually picked up the phone. And she told me right off the bat, I never pick up this phone. I never pick up this phone. Something must be really going on. What's going on? So I introduced myself and, what I was trying to, find out about myself. And she wanted to schedule me for a reading, right? Never had any experience like that before. So this was really, really new for me. So we made an appointment, came down, sat in front of her, she had her cards, and she started turning over these cards and she started giving me her reading. And all of a sudden she just kind of stopped and she was like, you do realize that you're a light worker? And I'm like, no. I was like, what's a light worker? I don't know what a light worker is. And she was like, yes, you're a light worker. You're supposed to help heal people. And I'm like, okay. Like, I don't know what this means. I've never even heard of the term light worker. And so I met this woman. And she said, you need to be really cleansed. She was like, it's like you have a battle going inside of you right now, which really tripped me out because I thought I was the only one that was feeling something like this that I was thinking about. And she was like, no, it's kind of like you have this battle going on inside of you and you need to be cleansed. And I was like, okay. And this is where my exorcisms came in. And you don't really think about an exorcism unless you think about The Exorcist, or you think about these crazy stories that you hear about, and just, media and education and everything. Me, I thought, I was like, oh my God, am I possessed by a demon or something? Like, I was really scared because I didn't know. I wasn't educated enough yet. And she said, no, your number is the number 6, which in our Latin culture is Sagrado Corazon. The Sacred Heart is Jesus, right? So I was like, okay, it's not a religious person. I had no idea what that meant. So she said, you have to be cleansed for 6 days. I'm like, okay, 6 days. It's number 6. All right, cool, got it. But what was really interesting about that in the experience, it really freaked me out because of the fact that first when I saw her altar, I kid you not, it was probably as long as this wall, and it was every single saint that you could possibly think of. She had this huge altar table. She had velas everywhere, candles lit, and it was one of the most beautiful and kind of scary things I had ever seen, because I've never really been exposed to that side before. And over the period of those 6 days, a lot of trippy stuff happened. Things that I would probably consider like the second paranormal experience that I ever really had. In one of those instances, when I was actually sitting there, she had this huge tub, bathing me in herbs. I had to be put in like special types of, like I had a t-shirt. Literally, I had a t-shirt on. That's what I had on. Came down to my knees. And she's cleansing me in all of these things, all these herbs, all this spiritual water. And when this was going on, she starts yelling at something in Spanish that I couldn't see. I couldn't see anything. And she was yelling in the corner. I mean, she was going like a mile a minute, just cussing at this thing. Letting me know, I can understand a lot of Spanish. I can't speak it very fluently, but I understand a lot of it. She was basically saying, you need to get away from her. She's not yours. You need to get away. You can't have her. And I was like freaking out because I had no idea what this actually was. And she actually turned to me and she goes, you're not supposed to see these things yet. You're not allowed to see these things yet until it's done. And I was like, what the frick does that mean? You know, I was like, I have no idea what this means. So as everything goes along and I get to my very last day, some of the things that I saw on my shirts really scared me. And I talked about it a little bit, but I didn't really go into a lot of detail of what that meant because there were a lot of things that when I was being exercised in that way, it was preventing me from actually moving on with my life and doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is this to this day. And one of the shirts that really stuck out with me was because of the fact that we were actually trying to have children at that time. We were talking about having a family. And literally on one of the shirts that I had was a demon face, and there was an umbilicus linked to a fetus. And it was the most, for me at that time, the most terrifying thing that I'd ever seen, because it was something that was actually, it wasn't just something that was just splattered on my shirt, there was actually a pattern. And I saw everything, and she was like, this is what was going to be preventing me from having a family and moving on. This needed to be done in order for you to achieve what you're going to be doing later on in life. So after this was done, and I was really tripped out, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing with these gifts, with these abilities, how I'm supposed to help people. It was as if this whole door just opened up, and like all of this just kept flooding to me. All of this energy, all of these things, all of these signs, all of these symbols were just flooding in my way. And honestly, I did not know how the hell to decipher any of them. I had to learn. We didn't have, all of the, we didn't have Google, everything was just starting out. So I actually had to do a lot of reading and a lot of research. And I still felt like I was going crazy because all of these things were flooding into me all at once, and I was like, how do I convey this to people? How do I explain that what I'm seeing up here in my vault, how am I able to help people with this? How am I supposed to do it? And that's when I started finding the tarot cards. The tarot cards for me, a lot of people know, if you ever see the tarot cards, it does have a story from the Fool's Journey, right? If you ever see them. Major arcana, minor arcana. But for me, they were a tool. They were a tool for me to actually focus on what I was seeing. All the symbols, numbers, people, faces, energy, presence, all around. And I was trying to understand and learn how to translate that for people. And first I had to start with myself. I had to make sure that I knew everything that I was supposed to be learning, my boundaries. And so as it progressed and as I was actually looking into it, I was noticing that there was this whole spiritual world that I had no idea existed. And it was fascinating for me. I always call myself a budding occultist because I love everything about it. Even the bad, the good, they all teach me lessons. And so as I started progressing after this, it was just like, it was weird. The food tasted different. Colors were brighter. Energy, I could, not really see around people, but I could sense it. And I was able to know, okay, this isn't mine. Okay, this is mine. Do I want an ugly cry right now? Yeah, it's because this happened. Or is this, no, that person's just pissed off. Like, it was just like one of those, I had like this radius around me that I was able to actually decipher, okay, is this mine or is this someone else's? That's where the empathy comes in, right? Everybody has the capacity to have this ability. It's just on a heightened level for other people. But it can still happen. Everybody's got it. When it came to the abilities and trying to understand where I was coming from in order to give it to other people, that's where all of the learning started for me. And it was hard. It was a rough road. I did not know everything that I know now. And there were quite a few humbling experiences within that. I am a person that when it comes to abilities, I call myself out because there was a point in time where I got cocky. I got cocky and I paid for it. And so one particular moment when I was starting with all of this is that we actually went to, I don't know if you guys know where Granbury is, but we actually investigated the Granbury jail. Interesting little investigation for me. That was when I call it my humble pie moment. And it wasn't a slice of it, I ate the whole pie. And so I went in, this is fine, it's fine, I'm protected, it's cool, I'm gonna go in, I'm the shit, kind of thing. But when I got in there and I started kind of communicating and I started kind of picking up on things, this man was brutal. He was hateful, evil. It was the first time that I ever experienced when a spirit actually violated my mind. And when I say violated, it's not in the sense of a physical violation, it's more like emotional, like he was showing me things that he would do to the prisoners inside of their cells. He would show me how he liked to torture them. He showed me what kind of things that he wanted to do to them. And it was one of the first times that my mind was violated. And I couldn't get him out of my head. He was there, he's like, I'm up here now. I'm up here. You're gonna see everything. And that's what he did. And it scared the crap out of me. But it's in a good way, because I have been humbled ever since that moment. And I know that every spirit, even if they're bad, you have to respect them. And I didn't. I was going in all cocky, and I was just like, yeah, I got this. I didn't have it. And so at that time, after that moment happened, I actually had to exit the jail because of the fact that this guy was still in my head so hardcore that it was making me start to break down. It was also one of the first experiences that I had where I felt completely and psychically drained. And I had nothing left. And Georgina Holzmeyer, actually, she's talking paranormal over there at my place, she could vouch for me on that because she was there. And it was one of the most, honestly, disgusting moments that I ever had psychically because I was too cocky. And so that was the day where I was like, okay, well, bad spirit, good spirit, you got to respect them all. You have to respect them all because they were people. And even though they are continuing to be in the place that they are at that time, you have to respect the fact that they were living at one point, no matter how vile or good they are. And as things have progressed with that, I tried to grow my abilities to the point where not only just for the humbling moments, but also for those moments of joy that you experience whenever I communicate with the spirit. It was really odd because of the fact that they were showing me, I don't understand why spirits don't just give you a name all the time. I don't understand that. So I actually have to pick up on what they call identifiers. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that term. But it's basically what they look like, how they live. Some little thing that to the person that I'm conveying the message to can identify them as the person that they're meant to be hearing from, okay? I've had spirit animals come up to me, and I'm just like, okay, this is odd. This is the first time I've ever had like a spirit animal, come up to me. A lot of cats, believe it or not, a lot of cats. But I've also had spirits, approach me and they'll give me things like, one gentleman was just like, well, I like to have change in my pockets all the time, and I would jiggle my pocket change. I'm like, okay, what do I do with that? Like, I don't understand. It's really hard for me to try to, and I'm still learning to this day, how to understand that and make sure that it gets to the right person. And then, as these gifts go along, and as I'm learning how to do, my tarot readings and oracle readings, those are all tools that I use in order for me to use this as a focal point, for me to be able to receive all of this energy that's coming in for people, for clients. And it's been interesting. It's been interesting working with, I try to find my strength with different types of tarot decks, different types of oracle decks. If people that are interested in those types of things, feel free to come talk to me afterwards, because I can give you some little pointers on how it feels. Does anybody ever use crystals? Crystals are a huge thing for me. I use those as tools as well. For the most part, though, when it comes to using my abilities to try to give messages to people, it's a very sacred thing for me. It is a very sacred moment for an energy to come forward and want to talk to me, because of the fact that they didn't have to choose me. They could have chosen anyone else with abilities, or actually chosen their own loved one to give those signs to. And it's all about just opening your thought, just opening your mind to receive those signs, If you think about it, they're giving you signs every single day. You just don't have your eyes open up enough. Not everybody, just saying, but some. You don't have, you open your eyes in order to receive those messages. Feathers are a big one, believe it or not. I don't know if you guys have ever had experiences where you found feathers. Coins are another. A lot of people associate them with angelic, type of beings, but they also can be from loved ones. And it's kind of like where the progression of everything that's going on. All of these things have led me here. And it's been one of the most interesting journeys of my life. And one of my purposes that I've always wanted to be able to pass on is the ability and the platform to help others. Because there are a lot of people out there with abilities that don't know where to start. They don't know where to begin. And I was fortunate to have that one person, my spiritual mother, to help me get on that path. But she has since gone. I think she's living on a beach somewhere with her ducks. But she gave me the first stepping stone for me to start all of this research for myself and for my abilities and how to get them to where they are today. And it's been one of the most grateful things that I could ever experience from the spirit world, because they reached out to me. I didn't know that I was supposed to be called for this. And now that I have, it's been one of the most joyous things that I've ever experienced, being able to help those with my abilities, not only using tarot and oracle, but just my gifts as well. Because the whole medium psychic thing is really weird to me, to be called that. That's why I always consider myself a seer. But one of the things, if any of you think that you may have abilities, one, feel free to come talk to me, because I'm always down for that. Two, just be open. Be open to any type of sign or symbol or number or a person of a person's face that pops into your head, and just learn what it means to you in order for you to interpret that for someone else. And it's only going to make sense to you. I always tell clients before I even started tarot reading or something, everything that comes out of my mouth from this point on is not going to make sense to me. I'm hoping it resonates with everybody else, or the client that's sitting in front of me. And that's been my journey. This is where it has taken me here, and I'm very fortunate that George was able to give me this opportunity and to just help people. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help people on a spiritual level, to help mentor if I need to help give them that first stepping stone, to help them understand, no, you're not going crazy. You're not going crazy. You're not. If you feel very, very strongly about this and it's just hitting you from left to right, come and talk to me. I'm down. I understand what that's like. And I mean, that's pretty much where it is. Everything that's coming here to this point, that's where I've been led to. And that's another reason why I wanted to set aside some really, a good amount of time to answer questions, because if you have them, I'm here. I'm here to receive them. That's pretty much my journey. That's it. And it's led me here. So feel free to ask some questions. I'm down. That's pretty much my story. That has led me here. And I'm just grateful that I'm here. Any questions? Throw them out, man. No? Come on, I know y'all have some. Anybody? You do? Yes, sir. The Blue 60. So the Blue 60 was actually a place that we went to in New Orleans, and a really cool little place. I actually had a really cool experience there. Georgina and I were actually staying in a room, and when I found out afterwards, she had actually gone to like Walgreens or something, right? I was asleep. And by myself, now that we know this. When I heard this sound, we had all of our, bathroom stuff in the bathroom, and I heard this sound of like someone going through my makeup bag, okay? Rumbling through the makeup bag, trying to find some makeup, lipstick, whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, I was like, can't she be loud? So I was like, what's going on in there? And then so I was kind of waking up, and as soon as I was looking to see what was going on, Georgina comes through the door. There's nobody else in that room but me at that point. She comes walking through the door, and I'm just like, weren't you just in the bathroom? And she's like, no, I went to like Walgreens or something. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So automatically, we're up and we're in like ghost mode. Okay, we're like looking around, we're checking things out. I think you had gotten like the trail cams. We're like, let's get them hooked up right now. So you were just like, yeah. And we went straight into ghost mode because we were trying to figure out what was going on. And it was one of the coolest paranormal experiences I've ever had there in New Orleans. It was awesome. And so what we found out later with the history is that it was actually kind of like the drag district at that point in time. So I'm just thinking to myself, hey man, maybe there was someone who was looking at some lipstick or some, mascara and was just like, ooh, I like this, like just kind of digging around and everything. It was one of the coolest things that I've ever experienced at the Blue 60. And then we also found out that there was someone actually murdered in our room at one point. To the point where we actually had some experiences about something we actually heard something being dragged at one point. So we're thinking like, furniture or, some type of like trunk, but there were actually like scraping noises that we could hear. And we were just like, what the hell is that? And so we actually started, asking more questions, and then we found out that, yeah, there was someone that was actually murdered in the room that we were staying in. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. But our room was a totally separate, like it was closed off, it opened up to a stoop and everything. Yeah. It was really, really cool. I love that city so much. If I wasn't married and I didn't have kids and stuff, that's where I'd be. I love that city so much. That is like, I'm drawn to that city. Have you guys ever had that, like where you had a place that you're drawn to and you're really attached to? New Orleans is it for me. So, anybody else? Questions? He got it warmed up. Throw it out. I'm down. Go ahead. Yeah. I've never really tried it with like objects. It's mostly been just like intuitively like seeing appear in my vault as people. But I would be more than happy to try it. Just because I know that a lot of family heirlooms and such would hold a lot of energy. And it's possible that you could start to get, some of those interpretations and those intuitive, things coming in. So I'd be willing to try it. That's actually something that I would really like to get more into is like actually holding, different types of objects to see what kind of energy you get from them. It's really interesting because antique stores are full of energy like that. Like you can kind of like see some of those things. People, with abilities, you can actually kind of like see it in your mind's eye of what it would probably look like or who it could have belonged to, what the feeling was behind it when the gift was probably given or the object. So it would be really interesting to experiment more with that. Yeah, it would be awesome. I've never tried it though, but I'm more than willing. Anybody else? No? Yeah? Yes. Good question, Ellie. Good question. For me personally, I wear a lot of black because black is a very, very protective color for me. As a practicing witch as well, I always like to incorporate a lot of crystals into my craft work as far as protection. Some of the products that I have over there, actually, I have black salt, which is good to guard against negative witchy things. And then I also have eggshells that I like to use to do like a barrier. For me, I use a lot of sage. I use a lot of Palo Santo, which is to kind of seal it afterwards. Just tip, always sage first, seal it with Palo Santo after, because it's a seal it. I just want to let you guys know that if you were ever wondering. And then also, it doesn't matter what faith you have, as long as you've got something, even if it's in yourself, if it's in the goddess, if it's in God, if it's in Jesus, whatever you have, whatever your religious background, always take it with you, wherever you're at, wherever you go, always take it with you, especially in a haunted location, because you never know what you're going to be walking into. That's one of those things that I always like to stress. Even though you've done the research and you know the history, you still don't know what you're walking into. So if there's going to be, spirits and things that you encounter, even different entities, non-human as well, always take with you, one, your faith, and two, any other thing that you think that you have faith in. Cross, pentacle, angelic, symbols, sigil, anything like that. Because if you have faith in it, you put the power in it. Even if it's a crystal, I have moldavite. Like before it came really cool, like the mold, like I love mold. But infuse that with what you have, your intention. It's just, it's witchy witness 101. Put your intention into it, put your intention in that object, and bring your faith with you. And then herbal things I always like to touch on, just because they are very, very effective. Sage is a really big one for me. And then, like I said, Palo Santo is another. Not just because of the fact that it smells amazing, it's also because it's a sacred wood. So whenever you're burning it, you're actually putting that holy vibe out there. So those are the things that I use a lot. And oils. Oils are really effective as well. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
There's so many people that lose loved ones, kind of reach out to psychic mediums or connect with them. Is there a time frame or any words of advice along those lines that you give?
So from a personal perspective, and just the experiences that I've had, grief is never going to go away. Okay? It never does. It gets better with time, but it doesn't go away. If there is someone who has recently passed, and I'm saying like recently, like within a year, it is very traumatic for the person that is still living on this plane to experience that. That is usually why people, when they lose someone, they are so desperate for them to come through. More than likely it will not happen because it's going to be too traumatic for that person, because it keeps kind of like rehashing the wound, and it doesn't give them time to grieve or heal. As far as the time frame on when someone usually will possibly come through, it's usually when the spirit feels that they have grieved to the point where they're actually healing, is when they usually like to come through and give a message. That is in my personal experience. And I know there's probably other mediums that actually experience something different. Maybe they are powerful enough to where they can't come through as they have finished transitioning. Just in my personal experience, however, it doesn't happen as often as people think, or as automatic as people would like. So it's really important to understand that. The healing is going to be more important for the person that is still here on this plane than the person across the veil. They're transitioning. They're going through what they need to go through in order for them to transcend and go where they need to be. For the person that's here, still living and grieving on this plane, it doesn't happen like that. At least in my personal experience. Anybody else? I love all these beautiful faces, man. I really do. I can't get over it. It's great. Anybody else? Throw it out, man. It's cool. You have another one? Okay.
So, as far as the stories I've heard and speculation, I understand about energy and negative energy and other things.
Excuse me.
What's more beyond that? Think about like a demon or an angel. Is it different?
For me, as far as it, like, have I ever experienced that? Or, okay. I have never experienced, in my, I've never experienced like a demonic entity. I have experienced what they call like a wraith. Okay? If, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that term, but a wraith is kind of like a person who passed on, but they just become very hateful. They become evil. They actually turn themselves into that. It's kind of morphed into that way because they have so much hate and resentment because they had to leave and they're just pissed about it. So, and they kind of turn into that. And so that is really the only thing that I've ever really experienced. And the one thing that I can say is that the spirit that I encountered in Granbury was something of that nature. And it was really, as far as like a demonic kind of thing, those instances are so rare. They're not fake, they're out there and it's real. But as far as like me experiencing, no, I haven't. But there are some spirits that kind of come close to that just because of how vile they can be, you know, and hateful they can be because they have so much hate and resentment in their heart that it kind of turns them into that. So, but as far as like experiencing it firsthand, no, I haven't. But I do know people that have, and I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. So it's been pretty dangerous from what I understand from other people that I know. So, anybody else? Go girl.
Do you have any tips for somebody who's similarly sensitive going on her first time to this?
Yes. One, I would definitely, like I said, whatever you have, that you have your faith in, take it with you. Also, I would probably anoint yourself with some type of an oil, like for protection. If you have any type of crystals that you really, really hold dear, I would usually do that. Black crystals are actually really great for that. Black tourmaline, obsidian, onyx, shungite is another really good one. Black is always a really good protective color. You're already wearing black now, so that's awesome. Yeah, right on. Okay, right on. Okay. And then also, for the hunts and everything tonight, I'm actually going to be there with like, I'm going to have some sage there, and I'm also going to have Palo Santo wherever you are. So if you feel that, and you feel kind of like, oh, no, you know, I'm feeling kind of weird, please come see me, because I will be happy to do a smudging for you. I don't charge anything for it. That is not my job. This is because you need to be protected. So, he's like, 5. I'm like, okay. Be standing. But yeah, and then whatever symbol that you actually resonate with as far as like your faith and what you put your intention to, bring it with you. Definitely bring it with you. So, and always have a buddy, because you also need a second set of eyes with that, just to make sure and know that they're okay. I always say, Georgina and my husband both know the look on me, okay? I have this look where it's just kind of like, I'll kind of just stare and I'm just kind of processing for a minute. They know that something's up. So whoever you have that's close with you, when they know you, your facial expressions, how you are, your personality, let them know, I'm not feeling so hot. All right, cool. That means we need to go. So, anybody else?
I want to go hunt.
You right on.
I bring good equipment.
Yes, you do. I see that. That's awesome.
Do you do things for the public, and how is the best way to contact you?
Yes, I do readings for the public. I do actually have cards and everything over by my table for Moral Compass Tarot. That's me. And I do virtual readings. I can do phone readings. Still working on the in-person just because I want to make sure everything's cool. But I love doing the virtual readings because I can still see you. For me, I love physical readings just because I can actually like hold your hand and give you a hug if I can. That's what I like to do as far as that exchange. But yes, I do. And you can actually reach me at moralcompasstarot@gmail.com. And then my card also has my number as well. So you can text me and we can set up a reading. And I try to make it affordable as possible because they need it. It's a gift. This is what I want to do. I want to help you. And so I try to make it affordable for everyone because it needs to be. Anybody else? You guys have been awesome. Thank you so much for listening to me. And come and talk to me over the mound, okay?